Sam, and I'm making this video for you to explain the way to understand and organize the forecasts at my member site or at the Vedic Astrology Training Lab. The real sort of backbone of that website and of that offering and of that training itself is the forecasts, and how you can learn so much about yourself by understanding these forecasts. So what I have behind me is a representation of literally the cycles of time on Earth and time and life on Earth. This is how I use astrology in my life all the time. So up at the top you see the sun cycle, which is about the action to focus on. That's for 30 days. Wherever the sun and moon come together, it's that 30-day cycle of action that we should be focusing on based on the sign, but then also where that sign falls from your rising sign. I'll explain it in more depth in a second. But that's the larger 30-day cycle of action, which leads to the halfway cycle, the full moon cycle. When we have the full moon, it's the halfway point, and that's the cycle of feeling. There's always this interaction between the sun and the moon that plays out within ourselves relative to the sign of action and the sign of feeling. Where we have the full moon is where our feelings are being developed at that time, where our heart is being developed. And that's also a 30-day cycle from one full moon to the next full moon. And then, of course, that full moon leads to the next sun cycle, and by that time, the sun has moved into a new sign. So this is a larger structure through which our 30 days of action are to be focused and our 30 days of feeling and receptivity. And they certainly complement each other because one comes at a halfway point in the other. So whenever we have a full moon, the sun is in the opposite sign. Whenever we have the sun cycle, the sun and moon are joined, so it starts the action. So in my forecasts, this is why I don't just do a general sun cycle for, the general public. That sun cycle forecast is based on the sign. Like if the sun and moon come together in Gemini, then I'm going to be talking about the qualities of Gemini. I'll also talk about the nakshatra and the other things that are happening at that moment. But then for the members, I talk about what house Gemini falls for you based on your rising sign. It's based on your rising sign, not your moon sign. I'm going to say that 2 or 3 more times. Your rising sign, not your moon sign. Your rising sign, not your moon sign. Yes, I know you hear other astrologers say your moon sign, so you're confused. It's based on your rising sign, not your moon sign. Okay? Transits unfold from the rising sign. The reason they used to use moon sometimes is because there weren't reliable birth times and all that stuff. Use the rising sign, the sidereal Vedic rising sign. That is where the forecasts and the cycles are coming from, okay? And that includes when I talk about the moon sign as well. So each sun cycle, you want to listen to the forecast, and based on your rising sign, that's the house I'm going to be talking about. So again, if we had a sun sign, a recent sun sign in Gemini, for Aries, that's the 3rd house. So your course of action, your Gemini cycle, is going to revolve around 3rd house things. If you're Taurus, it's going to revolve around 2nd house things. Money, wealth, values. If you're Leo, it's going to revolve around 11th house things, because Gemini is in the 11th house from Leo, which is community, things like that, ambition. So that's the sphere of action to pay attention to. This is how I use astrology all the time. Okay? What's the sun cycle? What should I be focusing on that 30 days? After that is the moon cycle, which is the halfway point. Again, it's the same principle. Maybe the full moon is in Sagittarius, okay? So you look at that, that's the feeling that we all have. That's the emotional feeling we all have during that time. Collectively, we're going through a full moon in Sagittarius cycle for the next 30 days. But Sagittarius falls in a specific sign from whatever your or I'm sorry, specific house from whatever your rising sign is. If you're Virgo, Sagittarius is the 4th house. If you're Scorpio, Sagittarius is your 2nd house. So again, that's how these things can be personalized for each rising sign. So those are the two 30-day cycles that are larger themes within, the course of your life. Within that, you have the daily forecasts. So again, within the structure of this cycle, you then have the daily casts every day. This is why I also make a daily forecast, because within the larger structure of 3rd house issues, 6th house issues, we have each day unfold. And in the daily cast, I evaluate the ruler of the day. Each planet rules one of the days. Sunday's ruled by the sun, Monday's ruled by the moon. So I evaluate the day ruler. I evaluate, and this is based on the moon. This is based on the moon moving through the zodiac. So each day the moon moves. This is what the moon does. It changes pretty much each day because the relationship between the sun and the moon comes out in these lunar days. So each day the moon, first of all, it's a different day ruler, what's called Vara Lord. So, of course, on Sunday it's ruled by the sun, Monday it's ruled by the moon, but then also the moon is in a sign. It changes signs every 2.5 days, right? So then it also moves into a new nakshatra each day, approximately. The nakshatra is the star. So we start with, at the beginning of the zodiac, we have the first star is Ashwini, then Bharani, then Kritika, then Rohini, then Mrigashira, etc., etc., etc. So I talk about the nakshatra. Then I look at any important aspects, like if Jupiter's aspecting the moon, if Mars and Saturn are aspecting the moon, if the moon joins Venus and Mercury or aspects those planets. I talk about the aspects as well because that's going to influence the mind. That's what the moon is. That's why we're looking at the moon each day. And then the tithi, which are the lunar phases. For instance, the new moon and the full moon are what are called tithis or lunar phases. The moon goes through 15 phases. So these are the things that I evaluate each day. So each day within this cycle, you have different changes happening within. And of course, you can pay attention to your chart and your rising sign. Let's say if you're the Gemini person, then you can remember that if the moon is going through, if it's in the sign of Libra, then that's your 5th house as well. And of course, I'm not going to do that for all 12 signs, otherwise these forecasts would be so large. So at some point you have to start putting some attention there as well. But this is how you can understand the forecasts that you get. And it's a beautiful way to understand each day what's unfolding for you and in the sky. So I do general forecasts for the public at large based on the sign and nakshatra and the indicators of the new sun cycle when sun and moon come together and start that cycle of action for the next 30 days. And I also do a general forecast for the public on the moon cycle based on the full moon. But again, for members, you also get it based on each of the 12 signs for you specifically, what kind of action you should be focused on at that time, what kind of feeling, how that feeling is going to resonate with you during that 30 days. And then each day there's a daily forecast that I also give within that structure. So this is how you want to be able to do it. Each day you'll get this, but it'll be within this and within this. There are amazing classes that you get for free when you join the member site. You not only get these daily forecasts for 50 cents, for 14 days, but there's also master classes on foundations of Vedic astrology, literally 4.5 hours that shows you how astrology really works. Then there's another class on quantum Vedic astrology, which shows literally how all these astrological principles show in the formation of your brain and how Western psychology and neuroscience and quantum physics understand literally and, also assess all of this Vedic wisdom in your brain through your inner conflicts and your cognitive biases. We see the astrology chart. And we see that in the sky, we see it in the natal chart as the cognitive biases, the inner struggles. And we also see how on the quantum level we create our reality based on those same principles. And then there's also a great template for you to look deeper into your chart and try to understand how these things work. The chart reading template is also very deep. I've heard some people say, oh, it's just kind of basic, but what about this? It's not basic. Believe me, it's very complex. If it's basic for you, then I'd love to hear you use it, and, hear you use the template itself by, make a recording and let me hear you using it and see how basic it is. It's very detailed and very in-depth, but this is mainly to give an overview of how you can understand astrology beyond just your life. And I mean beyond just your like what about my chart? What about my chart? These cycles, these cycles, they have a reference to your chart because it makes these sun cycles and moon cycles more specific for you. But for the most part, these are the things that we're all going through. This is our collective understanding all the time. And this is why in my forecast, my general forecast, I talk about the collective astrological weather and energy, and it's very resonant for people because I'm just talking about what we're all experiencing. But in the member site, I talk about it more specifically for your sun, so your 30-day cycle of action, your 30-day cycle of feeling, and then the specifics of each day, what to focus on based on the ruler of the day, based on where the moon is, the sign of the moon, based on the nakshatra of the moon, based on any aspects to the moon, and of course planets moving and things like that, and also the tithi or the lunar phases. So I hope this was helpful, and ask some questions if you have them about these forecasts and how to better understand yourself within them.